Hello everyone. Tonight we're going to tell a strange story about Bible manuscripts discovered on the Silk Road. Before you relax, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you really like the content here. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan to create some soft background noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. Before you even see the first camel of the Silk Road, your foot sinks into sand. The wind blows down from the valley outside Antioch, stirring the dust on your cloak and rustling the worn Bible manuscript in your arms. It was left to you by your grandfather, its cover long gone, the corners of its parchment inscribed with his handwriting. Don't rush, walk slowly. These words will guide you where they need to go. So here you are, with a flimsy cloth bag, a pouch of dried figs, and a growing sense of sleepy anticipation. You are neither merchant nor explorer, certainly not a scholar. You are simply searching, perhaps for history, perhaps for faith, perhaps just for a night beneath the stars to softly read an age-old page. Outside the city gate, a tea-drinking elder watches you for a long moment. He says nothing, only points east, not toward Rome, not toward Jerusalem, but toward much wind, much silence. You nod and begin your journey. Your first step lands in a puddle of mud, leaving a print and washing away a layer of weariness from your ankle. You go slowly, so slowly that even the wind seems to read aloud the world around you. The cracked olive tree roots recounting the dry season. The fissures in the paving stones hiding footsteps of Byzantine soldiers. The weathered inscriptions on the rock commands, or perhaps a simple plea. Please come back. Night falls and you rest against a warm stone. You take out the leather-bound book. It's sent in twilight mingling of time and dust. You turn to the first page, still bearing that familiar line. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It is not a thrilling opening. It is like a shallow, well, seemingly ordinary, yet echoing with a whisper that has never ceased for millennia. You read it softly. The wind pauses, as if listening. The stars, one by one, come to life. You think, perhaps this journey won't be so bad after all. You didn't expect to trade cinnamon for a horse at the edge of Syria. Yet here you stand, gingerly patting the flank of a creature half your height. The market is alive with clinking pots and shouted bargains. A merchant with sun-creased skin inspects your pouch of dusty cinnamon sticks, each one a treasure carried from distant India. He narrows his eyes, then nods. That, and the promise of 3 nights' watch by your campfire. So you agree. Your new companion neighs softly, as if amused by the bargain. You dig one stick from the pouch and hand it over, feeling its warmth against your palm. The horse's name, you learn later, is Sarush, after a Persian messenger of old. Its coat gleams chestnut in the golden afternoon light. You lead Sarush through winding souks, past woven rugs and the scent of roasting lamb, imagining how this spice once traced its way along the same road centuries ago. As you walk, you wonder what stories this horse carries. Did Sarush's ancestors carry silk to Rome? Did they gallop across dunes during moonlit raids? Or did they simply share quiet nights with weary travelers? Hoofbeats keeping time with crackling campfires? When dusk settles, you tether Sarush beside your fire. You run your fingers through its mane, breathing in the mingled scents of hay, dust, and cinnamon's faint sweetness. Tonight, you both rest man and beast, bound by a trait of flavor and fortune. Tomorrow, the road will stretch on again. But for now, in the hush of twilight, you and Sarush share a gentle understanding. Some journeys begin with spices, but they carry you far beyond what you bargained for. You follow the smoke curling across the dusk sky until you reach a circle of low flames. Parthian tribesmen sit on woven mats, half-roasted lamb legs balanced on flat stones. The air trembles with the scent of cumin, pomegranate molasses, and smoldering wood. A grizzled host with twinkling eyes offers you a seat and slides a golden bowl of tangy yogurt mint dip your way. He gestures to a skewer bristling with garlic cloves, an offering of hospitality older than the empire itself. You dip a tender slice of meat and taste history, smoky warmth, bright herbs, a hint of wild thyme from the nearby hills. Between mouthfuls, the tribesmen share stories of desert caravans, guided by constellations you barely recognize. They speak of an odd parchment that glows under lantern light, rumored to be a fragment of a Bible verse lost to time. You lean forward, spoon hovering. As one young storyteller whispers about the night he recited psalm verses to lure camels through a sandstorm. As stars awaken overhead, the crackling fire becomes a soft chorus to their words. You feel the gentle rhythm of clanking cooking utensils, of laughter soothed by feasting. No outsider would call this a grand banquet. Rather, it is a sacred pause, an evening woven from spices, stories, and shared silence. When the embers dim, you rise, heart warmed by more than lamb fat and coals. You tuck the last piece of flatbread into your satchel and bid farewell, carrying with you the Parthian blessing of simple meals and open hearts. You slip through the arched doorway of a half-ruined monastery, where sunlight filters in through collapsed roof beams, casting dancing patterns on the dusty floor. The stone walls are streaked with peeling whitewash, and bits of plaster litter the ground like paper scraps waiting to tell their story. In a quiet corner, you notice an area where the plaster has chipped away entirely, revealing a hidden niche. Heart softening with curiosity, you kneel and brush aside debris. There, pressed into the mortar, is a fragment of parchment. The ink is faded but still legible. A few words from Isaiah, smudged by centuries of neglect. As you gently pry at the edges, more parchment peeks out, layered behind the first. You lean in, mindful not to damage the brittle pages, and realize this isn't just scripture. It's a ledger of offerings, listing names of donors from far-off lands, each one accompanied by a small symbol, a date palm, a pomegranate, a camel. You trace your finger along the faded script and imagine the lives those names represent. Merchants, pilgrims, farmers, people who, like you, sought solace in these walls. The silence around you is profound, broken only by the distant drip of water from a cracked gutter. You pause to let the moment sink in. Here, between the stones and flaking plaster, live voices from a forgotten chapter of faith. The air smells of damp earth and aged vellum, and you breathe deeply, as if drawing strength from the very history beneath your fingertips. You gather the fragments carefully, wrapping them in a scrap of linen, and rise to leave. Behind you, the crumbling walls stand guard over their secret, waiting for the next wanderer to uncover more lost verses and hidden stories. You arrive at a courtyard shaded by slender cypress trees, where a lone scholar sits hunched over a small wooden table. In front of him lies a stack of parchments, their edges curled and yellowed. He looks up, offering you a weathered vial. "Smell this," he says. "It tells more than words ever could." You uncork the vial and inhale, a heady blend of rose water, aged amber, and something smoky, like distant hearth fires. Persian saffron ink, he explains, mixed with resin from cedars of Lebanon. Each drop preserves not just letters, but prayers. With gentle hands, he lifts the top parchment. Its calligraphy swirls like dancing flames, a fragment of the Song of Solomon translated into Pahlavi script. You run your fingertip along a curve of ink and feel the parchment's slight give, as if it remembers each stroke. The scholar pours a few drops of the vial's precious liquid onto a cloth and lightly brushes the corners of the next scroll. Instantly, faded characters glow, revealing a blessing once whispered within palace walls. You close your eyes, picturing courtiers leaning forward to catch its promise of peace and prosperity. As the sun dips, the courtyard lanterns flicker to life, their soft glow illuminating more parchments laid out like playing cards. Each carries its own unique aroma. Myrrh, cinnamon, musk, an olfactory map of 1,000 miles and 1,000 prayers. You stay until the lanterns burn low, savoring the mingled scents of faith, ink, and history. When at last you rise to leave, the scholar presses the vial into your hand. "Carry it with you," he says, "and wherever you open a page, you'll breathe in the echoes of devotion." Stepping back onto the road, you tuck the vial into your satchel, the fragrance lingering in the evening air, a gentle reminder that sometimes the most profound stories are those carried on the wings of scent. The village is barely a whisper in the hills, stone dwellings clinging to cliffs, ivy threading through shutters, goats dozing under fig trees. You arrive at dusk, and the only sound is a soft thrum of spinning thread, rising from a low house with a blue cloth door. Inside sits an old woman, her fingers swift and steady. She doesn't look up as you enter, only gestures to the stool across from her. On her lap is a deep blue robe. It's hem-lined with golden embroidery. But this isn't ordinary ornamentation. You lean closer. The stitches form words, tiny, deliberate Hebrew letters. She finally speaks, Psalm 42. For the days I couldn't speak them aloud. You don't respond. You just listen as her needle pierces fabric. Again and again, each motion gentle as breath. She embroidered her grief into linen, her hopes into the cuffs, her confessions inside the collar. When her son went to war, she stitched his name alongside David's laments. When her daughter gave birth, she added verses of praise near the chest, where the fabric would rest against her heart. You ask if she's memorized them all. She smiles, not with my mind, with my hands. Later, she pulls a robe from a cedar chest and places it over your shoulders. It carries the psalms you need tonight, she says. You feel the warmth of a cloth, the weight of words you haven't yet read, and something else, comfort, passed down in silence. Outside, the stars blink awake. You sit beneath a fig tree, wrapped in prayers sewn by tired hands, and sleep comes easily, because some scriptures are not spoken. They are stitched, threaded into us, to be worn, to be remembered, to be rested in. You find him where 3 dusty roads meet, seated beneath a patchwork awning made of camel hide and sailcloth. The sign reads only, words and water boiled daily. He doesn't look up as you approach, just gestures to the stool opposite him and begins pouring tea, amber liquid, into small cracked cups, steam rising like a silent benediction. Pick a number, he says. You blink. He clarifies, from 1 to 315. You pick 27. He nods and recites from memory, as iron sharpens iron. So one person sharpens another. Then he hands you a biscuit. Eat that slowly. It pairs well with verse 27. The tea tastes of cardamom and something smoky. Burnt cinnamon, perhaps, or old sandalwood. You sit back and listen as he moves between proverbs like a musician shifting keys. His voice is low, unhurried, worn smooth by repetition. Some verses he chants, others he whispers, as if telling them for the first time. You ask if he's memorized them all. He chuckles. No, they memorized me. Behind him, shelves of scrolls lean this way and that, bound with faded ribbons. The oldest ones, he explains, are copied from scraps found in abandoned wells or stitched into the hems of funeral garments. Wisdom likes to hide, he says. It's shy, but patient. As twilight deepens, he refills your cup. You're not sure how many proverbs you've heard now. They blend with the evening breeze, the tinkling goat bells in the distance, the smell of sage in a fire pit. When you finally stand to leave, he hands you a scroll, unmarked blank. Write your own, he says, but only after you've had at least 100 quiet nights. You carry the scroll in silence, your heart steeped like the tea you just drank, flavored with mystery, comfort, and words that feel like they've always known your name. You hear of the cave from a boy in the market, barefoot and grinning, who trades you the story for half a fig. Just beyond the olive grove, he whispers, where the goats won't go. Follow the red stones. The path is narrow and overgrown, and your sandals scrape against thorns. But eventually the trees part, and you find the cave, low, cool, and breathing silence. The smell hits first. Smoke, old clay, the lingering memory of wet sheep. Then you see them, the walls, psalm after psalm, painted in looping Hebrew, not with ink, but with ochre, soot, crushed berries. Each word a hymn held in place by weather and devotion. The shepherd was no scholar. His lines slant awkwardly. Some verses run together like rivers after rain. But there is tenderness in strokes, as if each letter had been whispered before it was drawn. Psalm 23, wrapped around the mouth of the cave. Psalm 121, arched high in the ceiling like stars on a desert night. Psalm 6, hidden low, where only kneeling eyes would find it. You sit on a cool rock, reading the verses aloud in a hush, as if to wake them gently from sleep. A breeze sighs through the entrance, rustling a few dry leaves. Perhaps the echo of a flock that once waited here, will soft with sleep, while their shepherd prayed. Some lines are faded, almost lost to time. Others shine bright with recent touch, as if someone still visits, still tends to these cave songs like sheep on a hillside. You stay until the shadows grow long, and before you leave, you dip your finger into the red dust near the entrance. You add a word, just one, quietly, reverently, a single amen, because sometimes the cave prays back. The manuscript is unassuming, tucked into the corner of a monastery library. It's leather, cover-worn like a prayer mat. The Gospel of Luke, handwritten in tidy Syriac script, the ink faded but patient. But it's not the verses that catch your eye. It's the edges. Folded into the margin between chapters 3 and 4 is something unexpected. A delicate map drawn on lambskin, so thin it flutters with your breath. Not a map of roads or cities, but of winds, of shade, of safe places to sleep between stones. Each swirl of ink marks a desert well. Each notch in the side marks a palm tree known to bloom only after the first spring rain. And there near the bottom are 5 tiny crosses. A monk leans over your shoulder. It's not a pilgrim's map, he says. It's survival guide. They read scripture while walking through the wilderness. When you're too weak to pray, geography becomes theology. You study the lines again, next to Luke's story of Jesus in the desert. The original scribe has penciled a note in tiny lettering. He fasted 40 days as we walk 40 miles. Mercy is west of the acacia grove. The gospel was not just read, it was walked, lived, sweated into sandals, and cupped into parched hands like the final drops of a canteen. You carefully fold the map back into the page, feeling the texture of ink against skin. You wonder who drew it, and if they made it through the heat, through the thirst, through the silence. You whisper a line from Luke, then trace the map's path with your fingertip. Sometimes scripture guides the soul, and sometimes it guides the feet. The workshop smells like lemon oil and old decisions. You arrive just as the last sunbeam slides across the sawdust-covered floor. No one speaks here, only the sound of slow carving, sanding, the soft clink of wood meeting iron. The carpenter is old, with hands that creak like his floorboards. He doesn't ask your name, just gestures for you to sit on a stool he made 40 years ago, when his beard was still dark and his questions more eager. He's building a table today, plain and heavy, from thick slabs of cedar. But before he joins the legs to the frame, he does something peculiar. From a drawer, he pulls out a strip of parchment and slips it into a hollowed-out groove in the leg's underside. Then he seals it with glue and a mallet tap that feels ritualistic. What did you just hide, you ask? He smiles faintly. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. He recites from memory. Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 2. You look at the table again. Sturdy, generous, meant for long meals and longer conversations. A place for children to do homework and elders to drink tea. And somewhere invisibly embedded in its legs are the quiet musings of a king who questioned everything. He continues working, murmuring scripture like he's sanding it into the grain. To everything there is a season, a time to weep and a time to laugh. Better a handful with quiet than 2 with toil and chasing the wind. By the time he finishes, the table is silent, but full, a place that holds not only dishes and elbows and time, but wisdom no one sees. He asks if you'd like to write your own verse and hide it in your chair. You do, not a famous one, just a line about hope, scribbled on a torn scrap. He slides it in, nails the plank down, nods. Tomorrow someone will sit here unaware, but supported by scripture, by memory, by hidden things that still hold us steady. You follow the scent of earth and fire to a courtyard full of flickering pots. The lamp maker works in silence, her hands covered in clay, her hair wrapped in a scarf that's the color of sunrise. She shapes without looking, like the wheel listens better than her eyes ever could. She doesn't greet you. She just sings, not loudly, almost under a breath, a melody that lilts like a cradle song, and beneath it, words you recognize. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. You sit on a stone bench as she presses her thumbs into a small bowl of wet earth, forming the spout of a future flame. Each lamp is a line, each curve a promise. She's shaping the story of Ruth, not writing it, not reading it, but forming it again and again, with mud and rhythm and fire. You see them drying in rows on wooden planks. One is marked with barley stalks. Another has a faint star carved near the handle. A third is shaped like two hands cupping something invisible. She hums as she works, reaching a part where Ruth meets Boaz. She doesn't say his name, just pauses to light a small flame in a finished lamp, letting the warmth complete the sentence. Later, she hands you one unfinished. Write your own ending, she says. I only carry the beginning. You cradle it carefully. It's still soft, fragile, full of potential. Like Ruth's story, like your own. The sun begins to set, and the courtyard glows with tiny flames. They flicker like prayers, like memories of love that chose to stay. You walk away, lamp in hand, light gently dancing on your palm, and you hear it again behind you, her voice faint but firm. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. The sea smells tired today, like it's remembering too much. You arrive at the edge of the village, just as the last boats creak onto shore. Sails slack. Nets dripping with silence instead of fish. He's there. The fisherman. Not young, not old. Weather-worn like driftwood and just as steady. His net stretches between two crooked posts, drying in the dusk. But look closer. It's not only seaweed and shells caught in the twine. There are scraps of parchment, tied like talismans. Each one bears a name, a plea, a question, a verse. Faded ink, smudged by salt and sky. You ask him if he fishes with them. No, he says, I fish for them. He found the first prayer years ago, tangled in his net after storm. A verse from Psalm 69. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. Since then he's added more, some scribbled on the backs of receipts, some etched into its shavings, one sewn into cloth. Whenever he pulls in a net and finds nothing, he knots in another prayer. He believes the sea listens, or at least holds things carefully. You help him fold the net, careful not to crease the fragile notes. He whistles a hymn with no words, only wind and longing. Before you leave, he offers you a blank strip of canvas and a piece of charcoal. Write one, he says, something small. Doesn't have to be fixed, just felt. You write a line from Isaiah, almost too quietly to admit. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. He knots it gently beside the others, then casts the net again into a sea that's more prayer than ocean. You find her at the edge of a village where the houses lean like tired mothers. The air is thick with herbs and heat. She moves gently through it all, her shawl tied at the waist, a jar of warm water in one hand and a leather-bound scroll in the other. She is a midwife, but she is also a reader of winds, not of omens or prophecies, but of comfort, of beauty, of words meant to soften the hardest hours. During birth, while others scream or pray or faint, she hums verses from the Song of Songs, not loudly, never forcefully, just enough to wrap the room in something ancient and kind. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. She's recited that one under flickering lamplight, as a child's first cry pierced the dark. Another time she whispered, Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? And the baby came with one hand curled into a tiny fist of purpose. She doesn't use medical terms. She calls the womb a garden, and the contractions waves of arrival. Every woman she helps is a city under siege and a temple being restored, all at once. Between deliveries, she sits on the rooftop and lets the wind carry the verses eastward toward the mountains, toward the next soul arriving. When you ask her why that book of all books, she smiles, eyes bright with years. Because it's not just about love, she says. It's about being seen, fully, softly, without shame. Before you leave, she places a petal-stained page in your hand. Just one line. Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come with me. You tuck it into your coat, feeling like it was written for a moment you haven't yet lived. And as you walk away, the wind stirs again, rustling olive branches and robes, carrying the poetry of birth and longing to places even she will never see. In a quiet stone monastery nestled among rolling hills, the scent of baking bread drifts through the corridors. The monk tends the oven with care, his hands flour-dusted and steady. His recipes are simple, but with a secret. Each loaf carries a proverb folded into its very kneading. He explains that wisdom isn't only found in scrolls or sermons, but in daily bread, the humble sustenance that feeds body and soul alike. Before mixing the dough, he recites, "Better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife." As the yeast rises, so do reflections on patience, kindness, and humility. Each step of the baking becomes a gentle meditation on Scripture, proverbs that have guided generations through hardship and hope. You watch as he writes down a new proverb on a small piece of parchment, then carefully tucks it inside a loaf before placing it in the oven. When the bread is done, the aroma fills the chapel, inviting prayers and peaceful rest. He hands you a warm slice and a quiet blessing. Let this bread remind you, wisdom nourishes more than the body alone. In a softly lit workshop filled with the gentle rustle of silk, an elderly woman weaves intricate patterns, each thread carefully chosen and placed. Her hands move with the rhythm of a prayer, fingers tracing the loom's frame like the lines of Scripture. She murmurs verses from Psalms as the shuttle flies back and forth. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Her silk isn't just fabric, it's a tapestry of faith and hope, a story told in colors and textures. Each piece carries blessings woven in, meant to protect the wearer and remind them of divine presence. As you watch, she pauses to dip her fingers in water and gently bless the finished cloth before folding it with reverence. Though the world outside rushes by, inside this humble workshop time slows, held steady by the prayerful weaving of ancient words and silk.